Mila! The older man yells, huffing his breath as I shuffle my feet behind him. Falling into place as stiff as iron, I calculate how to approach his mood. I swear I'm going to lose it one day. I do not make a sound, not willing to disturb him further, although there may be no helping that fully, ever. Instead, I raise my hand to gently poke Wendell just below his shoulder. Dust from the blowing sand, having seeped into his weathered leather vest over time, makes the material feel like sandpaper under the brush of my fingertip. The rest of his clothes and his hair aren't any cleaner. In fact, the strands appear almost brown from the grime that coats them, as if a veil has been cast over the gray of his age. It takes one tap for him to turn around, furious. "And just where exactly have you been all morning?" he questions me, voice blanketed with annoyance, but I know him better than to take it personally. I also brought him what some might call a bribe to help with his temper. "Your wife needed me to tend to the children this morning. There was another inspection." I look down at my dirty fingernails, appreciating my own dust-covered appearance. The grit of loosened earth climbs much of my mocha-colored skirts. In truth, I'm no better than him. His brows lift, jaw working at the alarming news I've so casually just uttered. But I cut him off before he can make any further comments. "Fresh bread, rum, your favorite, and it's still warm." I wave the items in his face, almost singing as I do. It might be backwards thinking, but rum seems to simultaneously create and solve his problems at the same time. Besides, I'm going to need him to be in better spirits for this conversation. Wendell looks around the docks as he weighs the gravity of what I've said and didn't say. He then quickly grabs the chunk of bread, shoving it into his mouth, before reaching for the flask and drinking it down in one big gulp. It seems like he and I share the same thinking. I shake my head in a mixture of disbelief and expectancy. Disbelief at how everyone in this town is constantly under some kind of influence, and expectancy that he's just like the rest. "There was another inspection, you say?" he asks, his voice already shifting to something much more light and flippant, but he doesn't jump at the opportunity to hide the concern that rims his words. I look away from his stare, over at the ripples of the sea, beyond the rotting dock, feeling the weight of the events that transpired earlier this morning. The turquoise blue of the water sends such an electrifying feeling through my pulse that I feel a dull pain rise in my heart for not being out there. It's almost enough for me to forget everything, but I don't. Wendell and I shouldn't be having this conversation so openly, but I continue as if everything is normal, in case even now we are being watched. "Yes, the Navy continues to believe that you and Daria are harboring nameless children in your stead." I speak carefully, now staring out at a ship growing in size as it sails towards us from the distance, plowing through the waves with a mighty force. They were extremely thorough with their search today. I wasn't certain they'd leave us alone. In the land surrounding the Azulan Sea, to be nameless is to be unclaimed, unspoken for, and unprotected. To have such a fate renders a person a target to all kinds of misfortune, and more likely than not, death. It is best to pretend that you are something else entirely and not get in the way of anyone important if you find yourself in such a position. Safety, of course, is only provided to those that belong to one of the four roots, those with an ancestral bond to one of nature's elements. It is most common for people to be bonded to what they are born into, but being common does not account for anomalies. I say this because, naturally, I do not belong to any root, nor do I share any instinctual bonds. Saba, this growing seaside town, is a melting pot for people of all kinds, a place of multicultural harmony on the surface that creates a breeding ground for nameless children behind closed doors. Despite my distraction, my face twitches as my mind drifts to the shipwreck that drowned my family. The one that left only my brother and I behind, as if fate thought it would be humorous for two kids to live on to tell the tale, but simultaneously have to keep their mouths shut about it. To this day, I'm not sure how we were able to survive. Not that I spend much time thinking about it, but it happened. I'm here, my brother isn't. Caspian left 6 years ago, promising me of his return, a promise that he has yet to fulfill, but I still wait, every day, hoping that every ship I greet will hold the greatest treasure of all, my last chance for being a part of something. The ship is not far off now, a colossal model of its species, and I already feel myself deflating under its shadow. I could have left 4 years ago. It's not like I didn't want to. Actually, I've been dreaming of doing so ever since I got here. But I haven't been on the sea since the day my parents died. Not out of fear, but out of hope that I wasn't left behind by the only person who still meant something to my blood. It has also been 4 years since I was formally permitted to leave the orphanage in search of a life that I could have lived if things had been different. But I've recently turned 20 and still work the docks alongside Wendell. While helping out his wife Daria with the other nameless children they have bafflingly decided to take responsibility over. Their relationship is already on the edge of impermissibility. Wendell of the forest and Daria of the clouds. The only thing saving their marriage is that they don't have any children of their own. But I suspect that's the least of their worries. Same as last time. He feigns a calm look, furrowing his features and snapping me out of the daze I was just in. I bring my line of sight back onto his face, just as a rogue gust of wind loosens an oiled strand of hair from his ponytail. His complexion looks freshly warmed by the rays of the early morning sun, deepening the already dark copper color his skin previously held. Without checking, I am certain that I bear the same rosy kiss on my own skin, permanently set from each long day working on the docks. Even with our cool exteriors, I know we share the same sense of unease, so I extend a near imperceptible nod his way, just enough so that he might see my response. Someone must be talking, Wendell conspires, searching the docks with his squinted grass-colored eyes, as if he might find someone right here and catch them in the act. I bite my lip nervously as I watch him lean in toward me, grabbing my shoulder to keep from falling over, the swift aftermath from the flask of rum he just devoured, I presume. We're going to have to be even more clever than before. Leave at different times. The children should stay inside for a couple of days, until we deem it safe, he whispers into my ear, looking past me with a crooked sort of smile. He then swiftly does his best at standing straight and presentable again, before turning me around to do the same. It'll be fine. We'll figure this out when we get home, he finishes, searching my eyes for what looks like approval. Nodding, I look up at the hull in front of me, already distracted. I memorized the symbols and wood engravings within my first week of earning my wages here. After working in the same place for so long, it becomes easy to recognize who you'll meet on each vessel and what type of scale it operates on. Saba has become the sort of place where every route can live together, a haven that attracts dozens of ships each week. There is a colorful and crowded marketplace just off the harbor, containing trinkets from all over the Azulan Sea, with multiple districts within the labyrinth of the town, some divided by route and some combined. In theory, everyone should be welcome here. In practice, however, that's not really the case. From the looks of the craftsmanship of this vessel, I know it belongs to the Navy. You can tell because each of the vessels are adorned with the same carved embellishments, vines that appear to be tightly enveloping waves, where above, birds are seen to be flying against gusts of sand. It is a symbol of unity, a unity that only belongs to the four roots. That is why I know Caspian won't be on it. As Wendell and another one of his dockhands, Sol, run to catch the mooring lines and fasten the massive ship to the all-too-small wooden pillar meant to hold it in place, I stand waiting to greet its captain and mark its entry. Salty water splashes and pounds against its underside, calling my attention to its name, the Resolute. Almost immediately after reading the title, I have to fight the part of me that wants to run the other way. I close my eyes in anticipation of the man who I know will step down at any moment, to address me in the same manner he always does. Ah, precious Mila, ready to join me tonight in town. There it is. I blow out a breath of air before opening my eyes to take in the sight of the man, dressed in the blue Navy uniform, ornamented with silver buttons along his chest, signifying his rank. Unlike those of us who work on the dock, and even most of his crew, he seems polished, sporting a fresh shave. I regard the way he towers over me, looking me up and down with his nauseating smile and scrutinizing eyes. I don't miss the way they linger on my bosom. By features alone, we look as though we could be related. The same golden blonde hair, the same honeyed eyes, trapping the gleam of the setting sun within his irises, reflect back at me as if he were a mirror, features that typically belong to people of the sand. While his root is made obvious through his physical traits, it is the symbol on his wrist that confirms it, a small piece of brain coral inked in soot. But as my heart begins to pinch at the thought of family, and my lack thereof, I choose not to dwell on it for much longer. Still not a strumpet, I'm afraid. I roll my eyes at the remark before deciding to steer the conversation toward a more dignified topic. Welcome back to Saba, Captain Nassim. I hope you and your crew will feel most comfortable during your stay. I begin to walk, fulfilling my duty to lead him and his sailors off the docks, back into the cusp of town, without needing to glance over my shoulder at him a second time. I have received this reaction on every occasion I've greeted him during his returns. It does less to make me uncomfortable than it does to make me annoyed. Yet, in a way, it also shows me that today will be just like any other day, because this is routine. normal. I can't tell if that makes me happy or disappointed. That's too bad. I'll be waiting for the day, he says, lengthening his words in another attempt to get my attention. I practically choke on my saliva when I hear the smirk in his voice, but decide to wave him off. As we move, I look down beyond my dancing skirts, peering through the gaps between the wood to watch the gentle sway of the water against the harbor. A nice contrast to how the water sounded only moments ago, upon the brute force of his ship's arrival. Say, he starts again. I heard that Nameless children have been trying to get inside the likes of the Navy. That true? I feel heat rise and flurry within my body as I tense at the question. I practically have to force my gaze back onto him, pulling on the long sleeves of my dress to further hide the lack of painted skin on my wrists. My brother and I never had the ceremony. We never could, not when there was no one of blood relation still alive to officiate it. Besides, it's not like we remember their past anyway. But that could very well be the reason for the increase in inspections lately. One of the boys back at home must be trying to live beyond their means. I try not to betray my nervousness at the possibility as I abruptly stop at the end of the dock. No, I have not, I answer firmly, hoping it doesn't sound too defensive. Where could you have heard such a thing? His eyes probe my face. Information spreads fast in the Navy. The last time something like this happened was 6 years ago. He says this in such a way that I cannot tell if he is oblivious to the accusatory tone in his voice or if he actually intends it. Can you imagine that? How preposterous! You'd think they'd learned their lesson by now. I try to process his words, doing my best to fight the suspicion now rising in my chest. 6 years? Cass left 6 years ago. No, there's thousands of people who reside in Saba, let alone hundreds of nameless men. But it's also possible. I look down at the scroll of paper lying on the makeshift desk in front of me. Lifting the pencil and tapping it against my mouth, wheels begin to turn in my head. How many days did you say you'd be here for? I ask, careful not to reveal my mind. I didn't, he replies matter-of-factly. 3 days. Maybe we'll bump into each other sometime. I scribble his name, along with the number of crew he carries and the name of his ship. When I look up again, he's waiting, studying me so intently that I begin to feel insecure about the state of my filth. In reality, I know he's just waiting to be dismissed. If I may be so bold. He gapes at me, dissatisfied by my disregard for his awaited departure, but expecting. Are there records of nameless children doing this? Attempting to join the Navy, that is? Oh, well, of course. If their name is on the record, you'll find on the list with all the others that have been executed. A small smile still lingers on his face. If that's all, me and my men best be on our way. Done with the conversation, he turns away, whipping his long coat with an unnecessary force, and marches off with the rest of his crew. Stunned is the only way that I can describe it. How I currently feel. How insensitive a man can be. He speaks of execution as if it is nothing. I shudder at the potential of finding my brother's name on that list, but I know it will devour me from the inside out if I do not check for it.